Okay, students, so I think most of you have come. So before starting the class, I just want to make one small announcement. The first announcement is that I am recording this session. So what I will do is once I complete the lecture, I will upload it and pass you the link on Google Classroom so you can access it from there. And the second announcement is in this Google Classroom, I have created the project evaluation stuff over here, and the due date of that is 31st. So what you have to do is you have to individually, though you are in a group of 4, it's not a problem, but you can submit that same report in your own individual accounts. So you have to submit that report, and that the due date is 31st and it will be evaluated. So this is the second thing. And before starting the lecture, just wanted to tell you one thing. Like what I will be doing right now will be I will be presenting my screen to you people. So it will be difficult for me to you know get to know the feedback from your side in terms of when you will write something on the chat window. So what I'll expect from you people is, in case if you are not able to hear my voice, or if you are not able to if you're not able to see my screen, or if you want to ask any question, so I will request you guys to speak actually instead of writing. So whenever I am teaching for this particular lecture, you can speak in between and ask me your doubts. So that is the second thing. So now what I will do is I will start presenting my screen, and if you have any doubts on that screen, you can stop me at any time and we can discuss the doubts if you have. So let me present my screen now. Okay, actually I forgot to present at that time, so just wanted to show you here that what I was telling. Uh, it's like, we'll have a project evaluation thing over here. So what you have to do is you have to submit your reports. Though you are in a group of 4, you can submit the report in your individual emails and turn in over there so that we can evaluate. And uh, the due date for that is 31st August. Okay, so just a quick feedback from your side. Are you able to see my screen? You can, any one of you can just write on the chat window so that I will be,
Yes, sir, we can see.
okay, okay, fine. So, so let me present my screen to you here, and then let's do the start of the lecture. So today what I will do is I will give you some basic introduction to what machine learning is, and it will be just a fundamental class today with fundamental concepts, and once it is finished, then we will move to deep learning in our next lecture. So it will be a complete refresher for you people for what you have done in your earlier lectures. So the content of these slides will be actually mainly focusing on regression. Then we will move to classification, and after that, once we do that, then we will see what are the main drawbacks of these two approaches which actually motivated us to move to neural networks. This we will not discuss here because this is my presentation for some company, so that one so I am taking it from here. So but the thing is, we will restrict our lecture mainly to these two topics, and then after after getting the understanding of what is regression and classification, then we will move to neural networks. So this will be a complete slide refresher of what you have done in your earlier course. So to start with, what is machine learning? Machine learning is basically nothing but a program that can behave externally like a human, and it should operate internally as a human also. So that is actually the main constraint and what you can say about machine learning is. So it's like a program that can that has to behave like a human, and internally also it has to operate like that. And the systems, that computational systems that you will design should behave intelligently. So that are the three main important points regarding the question that what is actually machine learning. So So the thing is, any program, if it is intelligent enough, it has to pass through the test which we call as Alan Turing test. He is a father of modern computing. So the thing is, as we all know that human beings are all intelligent people, so there is no doubt in that. But a program that you are writing, if that has to be called as a intelligent program, then it has to satisfy some constraints, and the constraints is that it has to satisfy the Turing test. And the Turing test is that the machine, whatever machine or a program that you are writing, should produce the same responses that are indistinguishable from the human being. So if that test, which we are calling as Alan Turing test, if that test is, if the machine passes, then it will satisfy the uh, that it is if it satisfies the Turing test, then that machine will be called as the intelligent machine. Okay, so the typical applications that we have for machine learning tasks are, these are the typical applications of machine learning. So what are they? You can have a traffic prediction task, then search engine results, online fraud detection, medical diagnosis, text and speech recognition, email and spam filtering, image recognition, virtual personal assistant, automatic translation. So they are just few of the applications that we have in machine learning, but if you explore, then there are tons of them. So I have just listed few of them in my slide here. So before starting the formal introduction to the machine learning, let's have some videos which will get your interest onto this particular subject. So this video is from Amazon Go. Maybe you have seen it or not, but it's a worth watch for a second. So I'll just play this record and you can just watch and see how far we have gone in terms of producing very good results and applications in case of machine learning and deep learning.
4 years ago, we started to wonder, what would shopping look like if you could walk into a store, grab what you want, and just go? What if we could weave the most advanced machine learning, computer vision, and AI into the very fabric of a store so you never have to wait in line? No lines, no checkouts, no registers. Welcome to Amazon Go. Use the Amazon Go app to enter. Then put away your phone and start shopping. It's really that simple. Take whatever you like. Anything you pick up is automatically added to your virtual cart. If you change your mind about that cupcake, just put it back. Our technology will update your virtual cart automatically. So, how does it work? We used computer vision, deep learning algorithms, and sensor fusion, much like you'd find in self-driving cars. We call it Just Walk Out technology. Once you've got everything you want, you can just go. When you leave, our Just Walk Out technology adds up your virtual cart and charges your Amazon account. Your receipt is sent straight to the app, and you can keep going. Amazon Go. No lines, no checkout. No, seriously.
So as you might have seen this video, so most of you, as you have done your preliminary course in machine learning, so you must have immediately recognized that what kind of deep learning algorithms that will be used in case of achieving this task. So so they are basically image segmentation and all that higher algorithms that we use in deep learning. So that constitutes this particular application that Amazon has implemented in one of their stores. So this is the first application, and let's move to the second application. So let me play this.
The progress of the system. As I said earlier, our vision for our assistant is to help you get things done. It turns out a big part of getting things done is making a phone call. You may want to get an oil change schedule, maybe call a plumber in the middle of the week, or even schedule a haircut appointment. We are working hard to help users through those moments. We want to connect users to businesses in a good way. Businesses actually rely a lot on this, but even in the US, 60% of small businesses don't have an online booking system set up. We think AI can help with this problem. So let's go back to this example. Let's say you want to ask Google to make you a haircut appointment on Tuesday between 10 and noon. What happens is the Google Assistant makes the call seamlessly in the background for you. So what you're going to hear is the Google Assistant actually calling a real salon to schedule the appointment for you. Let's listen.
Oh, how can I help you? Hi, I'm calling to book a women's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd. Sure, give me 1 second. Sure, what time are you looking for around? At 12 p.m. We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15. Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.? Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for? Just a woman's haircut for now. Okay, we have a 10 o'clock. 10 a.m. is fine. Okay, what's her first name? The first name is Lisa. Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd. Okay, great. Thanks. Great. Have a great day. Bye.
That was a real call you just heard. The amazing thing is the assistant can actually understand the nuances of conversation. We've been working on this technology for many years. It's called Google Duplex. It brings together all our investments over the years in natural language understanding, deep learning, text-to-speech. By the way, when we are done, the assistant can give you a confirmation notification saying your appointment has been taken care of. Let me give you another example. Let's say you want to call a restaurant, but maybe it's a small restaurant which is not easily available to book online. The call actually goes a bit differently than expected. So take a listen.
See how may I hear you?
Hi, I'd like to reserve a table for Wednesday the 7th.
For 7 people?
It's for 4 people.
4 people when?
Next Wednesday at 6 p.m.
Oh, actually we reserve for after 5 people. For 4 people you can come.
How long is the wait usually to be seated?
For when, tomorrow or weekday or?
For next Wednesday, the 7th.
Oh no, it's not too busy. You can come for 4 people, okay?
Oh, I gotcha. Thanks.
Bye bye.
This is a example of Google Duplex that I have shown you here. So as most of you might be knowing it, that it's a typical application of
Again, that was a real call. We have many of these examples where the calls quite don't go as expected.
So that Google Duplex that I have shown you in our earlier slide, it's a typical example of natural language processing, and sometimes we call it as sequential modeling also. So we will discuss this in our later lectures. So this is a typical application. The Google Duplex is typical application of natural language processing. So let's move forward. So another motivation of learning machine learning and deep learning is for creating applications for military applications. So I have taken this article from one of the news agencies. So what they say is Coast Guards are actually turning to AI centers for data insights. So this is very important thing. Like most of the military people that we have in India also. So I have interacted with them. So in the normal interactions, that what I have realized is, and what they were saying is, they have a lot of data, and the data is like tremendous. So, but the problem with that is how to make useful insights from that data, and how to come up with some, some data analysis of that particular tremendous data that they have. So this is very important that we should interact with the agencies that we have in our country, so that we can make artificial intelligence to make use of this artificial intelligence to gain insights into the data that we already have with our agencies here in India. So this is another motivation for studying machine learning or deep learning in any of the courses that you will take. Okay, so the typical application that we find in militaries also is like a target recognition. So here you can see that we have ship detection that's going on over here, and we use some advanced architectures of deep learning to detect the ships over here, and you can see the confidence levels that they are producing along with that. So here for this particular ship, the confidence level is 99%, but if you go to some other part of the ship also, if it is a small size, then also it is saying it's a 99% accuracy. So this shows the robustness of this particular algorithm, whereas for this part, if you see here, the the confidence level that it is showing is 78%, as it's somewhere down some or left part of this image. So it might have incurred some error, so that's why it's giving you 78% over here. But most of the detections that you see over this image are are more than 90% over here. And the second application is the drone detection. As you can see, if you have some drone flying out in some non-prohibitable zone, so you can detect that drone, and you can alert the agencies. So this is another application of AI in military applications. Okay. So this is all possible through machine intelligence. Okay, so the typical machine intelligence pipeline, actually, which we are calling over here, is broken into 4 parts. The first part, which is very important, is defining the task, which is, in case of this particular example, I am taking cats versus dog, which is a very typical example in case of machine intelligence. And the second step is to collect the data related to that. The third step is basically designing of the features. The fourth step is training of the models. Fifth step is to testing the model. So we will see each of these steps one by one in detail and see what's actually going on in here. So the first step is basically 0 step over here, but we can call it as first step. And the first step is to define the task. So in our case, what we are doing is we are actually defining the task in terms of dogs versus cats classification. So if that is the case, then what we are doing is we are actually collecting the data corresponding to the dogs and cats. So here you can see we have set of collection of images of cat, and this is the collection of images, different images of dog. So what we have to do in data collection stage is we have to collect a lot of amount of data for cats and dogs, and we will discuss how much amount of data we require to actually correctly predict the help the machine learning algorithm to correctly predict these classes. We will discuss all these fine details in our later lectures, but for now you can understand that for data collection, what I am saying is, for any particular application, you have to collect the set of data corresponding to each of the classes that you want to recognize. So here in this case, this is cats and this is dogs. So once this is done, so let's move to other slide. Okay, the second step, which is very important, is designing features for this particular problem. And you might be thinking like how people have come up with this idea of designing features. So the idea of designing features for a particular problem is what happened is, like, most of the machine learning or deep learning researchers have contacted the doctors or neuroscience people, where what they have done is they have interacted with them and and asked them like how the human actually is seeing a particular image. So based on that, they have they have come up with this idea of designing the features. So what while talking to the while talking to these doctors, what they have observed is that what doctors were telling to them is, when a person is actually seeing an image, what is going in their brain, as you can see here, what is going in their brain is, they are not seeing this image as a whole, but what they are seeing is, they are seeing some of the edges which are present in the image, as you can see over here. So here, for this particular part of the brain, it is actually seeing a diagonal edge over here. For this part of the brain, it is seeing something like this, so it's also an edge. And for this part of the brain, it is seeing this type of edge. So once they realize that what doctors are saying is, a person's brain is not seeing this image as a whole, but it is seeing some low level features like this, then they realize that something is going in the brain of a person in which the image is looking like this. So here, if you see, for this particular image, most of the edges will be will be dominant in this direction. For this particular image, most of the edges will be dominant in this way, and in this particular image, most of the edges will be in this direction. So based on that, they realize that we have to design features which are actually edge detection features. So if that is possible, or maybe depending upon the application, they will come up with some novel features. It's not about only thinking in terms of edge detections like this, but for other applications, like we will see in the coming lectures, that it depends, like but the main concept for this particular slide is that the feature designing is important, and this feature designing is coming because of the interaction that the researchers have done with the doctors. So this is the important step, and it has to be designed properly, otherwise your algorithms may or may not work properly. So let's see what are the implications of for these particular for this step. Okay, so in designing the features for this particular for this particular problem, which is just a second, cats versus dogs. So what we are doing is, we are taking two features. First is the nose size, and the second one is the ear shape. So nose size, we are taking variation from small to big, and for the ear shapes, we are taking the variation from round to pointy. So the very first thing that comes to our mind is why we have selected nose size and ear shape as the features. So that comes from your prior experience for that problem. So for this particular problem, you know that nose size is a typical feature that can actually separate the two classes, like the cats and the dogs. And most of the dogs that you will see will have long nose like this. So all of these dogs will have long nose, and some of them can have a short nose, but most of them will be having long nose. And in terms of the ears, you know that most of the cats will have pointy ears, and the dogs will have round ears. You could have taken the ear shape. You could have taken the ear size also as another feature, but that ear size will not be a relevant feature for this particular application, because the size of the ear can be big for dogs as well as for cats. So that's why they have taken ear shape as the feature, and which is actually in between round and pointy. So this shows that the selection of the feature is very important, and actually it's task dependent also. And the most important thing for selecting the feature size is that you should have a very good understanding of that problem. The experience of that thing is required. So if you are not experienced in that area, then it might be the case that you will select some bad features, and that bad features may not be able to classify the cats from dogs. So this thing has to be kept in mind, that designing feature is an art, and it is basically depends upon mostly on the prior experience of your working in that area. So in terms of these cats and dogs, as everybody knows about this nose size and ear shape, and the reason for that is we have a prior experience in, we have seen so many cats and dogs. That's why we came up with this feature size immediately. So for some other tasks, you have to design some smart features that can do that. So this is the another very important step in designing machine learning algorithms. Okay, so the third step is basically training of the models. So in training of the models, what I mean to say is we have to come up with this separated line. This is the line or a hyperplane in higher dimension. So what we do is we have to separate the two classes, like this is the cats and dogs. So what we have to do, we have to separate it through a classifier which actually can distinguish the two classes properly. So the training of the model is to come up with this line, that how to actually train the model so that your line will be properly line will properly separate these two classes. So so we will see this. Typically the equation of the line is wx plus b. So just keep this in mind. I will show you more details about in our coming slide. But the main thing is how to select the slope and intercept of this line properly. Once you train this particular problem for this cats and dogs classification. So this is another important step, which is training of the models. Okay, so in this training of the model, we have this particular block diagram, and this remains constant for whether you are doing deep learning, whether you are doing machine learning, whether you are doing some other task. So this is a typical high level overview of a typical machine learning model. So what it says is you have an input data here. So the input data is basically the training data along with its target outputs. So what it means is, as you might have seen in your earlier classes also, that we have x and y, and x is basically your training data and y is the corresponding classes for that training data. So if you want to do dogs versus cats classification, so for dogs it will be 0 here, for cat it will be 1. So depending upon whether this x is dog or cat. So this is basically what it is saying over here, so that you have an input data with DAGs with data and its corresponding target outputs, and the target outputs is basically y, and this training data is x. So what you do is you feed this data into the model, and this model can be any model, which is either it's a regression model or a classification model. We will discuss this, but this is a general model that I am talking about here. So what happens is, once you feed this into this model, it will generate some results, and this results we will call as y hat, and this is actually the prediction of the model which you are doing. And now what we will do is you will take this y hat through this side, and you take your y from this side, and then what you do, you calculate the loss between the y and y hat, and this loss can be of two types. One is L2 loss, one is L1 loss. So depending upon the losses, one is L2 loss means you have y minus y hat square, and in L1 loss you have is y minus y hat modulus. So there are more losses also, but for typically what you see is L2 loss, and the reason for that is also become clear once I will go to the other slide, next slide. But L2 loss is the most famous loss that probably people use. And once you have this loss function, what you do is you actually calculate the loss, and then through the optimization process which is over here, you actually go inside and train this model. So this optimization method, what it will do is it will train the model, and it will actually adjust the parameters of this model. So once the parameters of this model will be adjusted, and once you train this for enough iterations, then what will happen is, once you feed the data here x, it will generate a data y hat, but this y hat will be very close to y. Earlier this y hat was not at all close to y, but during the process of training we have achieved this process, that we have achieved this output where y hat is very close to y. So this is the typical training of the model that we have in case of machine learning or deep learning. So let's go further. Okay, so now we have testing the model. So testing of the model is also important, because once you train the model, it is very much necessary to test it also, whether it's performing well or not. But you have to be careful here that the images that you are selecting should not come from the training database. So it has to come from the testing database. So you have to divide your data into two parts, 70-30 split. Later we will see that that is also not good. It has to be divided into three parts. But for this particular application, what you have to do is you have to divide the data set into two parts, 70% training and 30% your testing. So based on that, you have to do your testing of the model. So here you can see we have cats and dogs here, and most of the images that you are using here will not be there in the training data set. So similarly for dogs also. Okay, so now we have testing of the model. So in testing of the model, what we will do is, as we know, we have already trained the model. This model is trained, and this line is the best suited line to classify cats from the dogs. But now the testing point is to test the images which are not there in the training data set. For this case, what you do is you are actually feeding all these inputs. These inputs are the testing inputs which are coming from the data set, from the testing data set. So now what you see over here, that most of the images are classified properly. Like for this example, most of the cat images are classified. Here in this case, most of the dog images are classified, but this particular image which you are seeing here is not classified properly. So one of the possible reason for this is that this dog is having a pointed nose instead of a round nose, and also it can be and the shape of this is pointed, and the shape here, ear shape is pointed, but the nose size is small. So this image is actually a particular case where it's an outlier here in deciding whether it's a cat or a dog. So this is basically an outlier which is not properly separated by this separating hyperplane. So there are cases where your testing data will also fail, and this actually results in the error, and that's why you are not able to get 100% in your testing of the data. And the reason for that is these type of outliers that you have. So these images are not from the training data set. Okay, so the next thing that I will discuss here is the machine learning. In machine learning algorithm is regressions. So this is very quite famous algorithm that normally people will study during their machine learning course. So what happens in this is you have let us say for this particular example, we have share prices and then we have revenue. So what we are doing is we are actually plotting the data set for the share prices versus the revenue, as you can see here. So this is all training data. We have this as a training data, and now what happens is our main job here is to fit the line. So this is the line that is actually best fitted for this particular training data. So in this training data, what happens is you have a best suited line for this particular application, as you can see over here. So once you have this best suited line, then what happens is you are actually taking a separate new company revenue which is not there in this data set. This is the training data set and this is the testing data set. So this particular point which you are taking is not there in the testing data set over here. So just a second. So this is the new revenue data set, and what happens is once you put this into this particular fitted model that you have over here, then what you can get is the estimated price for this particular revenue, as you can see over here. So this is the this is the estimated price for this particular revenue, and this is the actually testing data. It's not the training data, and this data is not there in this particular application. So this is the testing data, which is different from the training data set. So this is a typical application of regression. Okay, so here we have this machine learning algorithm. In this machine learning algorithm, this we have already discussed, and for a typical regression problem that we have over here, you can see now that the model now is this one, and this model is basically, is equal to wx plus b. Here I am writing it as k, but it's wx plus b. And what I was telling you is, once you have y here, it will generate y hat. This y hat and this y which is coming from this side will actually generate the loss, which is y hat minus y. And once that is done, through the optimization method that we will be discussing later also, but for this particular slide, you can observe that what I am doing is I am using stochastic gradient descent. So based on this optimization method, you will actually, as I told you in earlier slide also, it will tune this model. By tuning this model means we will be tuning the weights and the bias for this particular model. So if you tune the model and if you train this particular model for bias and for weights and bias, then you will come up with some good classifier which can separate the two class. You can actually come up with a regression model, a good regression model. In this case, it's a regression task, so you have to come up with a line that can actually best fit the data points. So for example, if you have some data set over here like this, so what happens is when you tune W and B, this line, which is the line that we have here, will actually what will happen is it will adjust accordingly, like this or this. So depending upon the training of the W's and the B, the slope and the intercept of this line will change. Okay, so here you can see typical iterations that you for fitting of this line. As you can see that the blue line, which is over here on the left side here, is actually iterating with epochs, and you can see how the W and B of this blue line is changing, so that it will adjust to this data which is available here. And you can also observe that the epochs are also running from 100 to 100 to something like it's going up to 10,000, I guess. So once the epochs are completed, your best fitted line will be available. And on the same slide, you can see here we have a training error also. In the training error, you can see how the error is decreasing as you are running the epochs from 0 to 10,000, and it's reducing every time. So this actually is basically the loss function that you are calculating at the output. But for in case here we are taking the loss function for training, but for the back propagation purpose, in order to train this line for W and B, we will be looking for the testing error. But for here we are looking for training error and seeing how our model is generalizing to this particular data set. So this is a typical application of regression. Okay, so the next thing in regression is the cost function. As you might have seen in our slide also, this cost function is actually also sometimes called as loss function, which we have discussed in our earlier slide. So the cost function, the important thing is this cost function should be convex. That is the most important thing. There are two types of functions which are convex and non-convex, but in most of the machine learning tasks, we are actually interested in convex functions. And if the function is non-convex, we try to actually come up with some mathematical techniques to convert a non-convex function to, just a second. To convert a function to convex from non-convex. So the most important thing that I have told you is that the cost function should be convex, and the reason for that is that most of the convex functions, if you plot, will have a minima which is a global minimum. That is important. So in order to get to this global minimum is easy. That's why we are looking for functions which are convex functions. Or non-convex functions will not have a global minimum. It will have several local minimas like this. So the solution can stuck over here also. So it's also a minimum around the neighborhood, but it's not the global minima as you can see over here. So in most of the recent research papers, what they do is, if they are coming up with this non-convex function, what they will do is they will try to make it convex, and then they will show their results. So for this particular application, as you can see, I have two slides, two portions. One is on the left side, another one is on the right side. And here you can see you started from this data point and you are moving down like this, down the hill. Okay. So as you can see, currently you are at this point. So corresponding to this point, you have some intercept, you have some slope. So corresponding to this point, as you have some slope and intercept, and you know that this is not the minimum of this convex function. So the line which you are fitting to this particular share price, which we were discussing in our last slide, is not the optimal line, as you can see over here. But on the left side, as you can see, once we move from this side down like this to the minima of this convex function, then you get the optimal intercept and slope. So this is the intercept, this is the slope. So once you get this optimal W and B, you are actually fitting this line onto this data set, and now you can see that this line is actually a optimal line, which has a minimum error. And minimum error, you can see over here also that it's a minimum over here among all the neighborhood points which are available on this convex function. So this is the minimum point. So corresponding to this minimum point, we have the best suited W and B. Okay, so the second task that we have is the classification task. In this classification task, what we do is we classify, as we have discussed in our earlier slide also, that is cats versus dog thing. But here I am taking the face and non-face type of application which you normally see in your Canon digital camera also. Whenever you are snapping a picture of your friend, you can see that some bounding box is coming onto his or her face. So that type of whatever algorithm that is running on that camera is basically the classification algorithm. So here you can see what I am doing is for this particular person, we are creating a bounding box, and this bounding box we are projecting onto the n-dimensional space, and this is basically a point in that n-dimensional space. For example, if this box is a 64 cross 64 dimension, so what we will do is we will be projecting it as a point in a 64 dimension space. So that is no, not 64, it's 64 cross 64. So in that dimension it's a point. So so that's why what you do is you are taking this as a face, and so and for this particular person also you are taking it as a face, and similarly you will have other faces also in some other images. So all the blue points will be corresponding to face, and the red boxes are not face, so they will be here. So now our job is to actually classify these face from the non-face using this particular linear decision boundary or a non-linear decision boundary, that depends upon the application. So here also again you can see this is basically all non-faces and these are all faces, and what you are trying to do is you are trying to come up with the separating hyperplane which can separate the two face and a non-face from each other. And once you have this through a training process, because this thing is done through training, so once you have training done, this hyperplane which you are creating will actually separate the two from the non-face and the face. And then so once you have this trained model, what you do is you test the model through this particular test data set, and this, as you can see, is shown in black, and the reason for showing it black is it's not in this data set. So Once you have this test point, what you will do is you will feed it into the classifier, and the classifier will give you the result. And in this particular case, it is showing you that it's a phase. So that is the basic problem in classification. Okay, the classification also follows the same path as I have showed you this slide earlier also, but the only difference is that we have cross entropy loss. This we will discuss in our later lectures also, but for now you can understand this is also one of the losses that we have for classification. And then same thing follows here also, but the only difference now is that we are having a sigmoid also operated on this, and this sigmoid is basically ranging from 0 to 1. So it's basically compressing all the values that you get from the regression data points and make it in between 0 and 1. And the reason for selecting the sigmoid is because you have to detect whether it's a phase or not. So at the end you have to have a labels that will output 0 or 1. That's why we are using sigmoid operated on this particular thing. So the important takeaway from here is that the cross entropy is different for the classification. It's not L2 loss or L1 loss here. And the second thing is there is a sigmoid which is operated on this model, which is earlier a linear regression model. So you are operating a sigmoid over this. So this is a typical classification problem. So you can see here also again we have a algorithm which is actually separating the two based on the epochs. So as the epochs are running, it's getting better and better, and you can see that the final line that you will obtain will be the final optimized line in terms of the optimal weights and bias. So this is the final result in separating phases from non-phases. And this is also similar on basis of what we have discussed in case of linear regression. So here also you can see this point is not the optimal point. That's why the classifier is not able to correctly classify all the points properly from phase and non-phase. But once you reach the local minimum, then you will have a optimal classifier which can separate the two classes properly. So all this happens when you do the gradient descent or any optimization technique which actually makes your points move from a non-local optimum to a local optimum. So once you reach to this local optimum, you will get a better classifier. Okay, so this thing what we have discussed is a high level overview of regression as well as the classification, but as you might have covered all these concepts in your earlier in your earlier course on machine learning, that's why I have gone a bit fast over here. So but my main intention was to show you to give you a brief recap of what you have done in your earlier courses. So so the next thing that I want to discuss is that what is the problem with this regression and classification and why we moved to neural networks. So from here onwards, what we will start is actually our course on deep learning, and we will start from neural networks. But what we ought to know is what is the drawback of these schemes. Because of that we are moving to neural networks. What is the reason behind that? Because if you don't know the reason, then there is no point in studying the advanced architectures. So in this particular slide I am telling you that so all these linear regression and linear classification or non-linear regression or non-linear classification are basically fixed models. Why they are called as fixed models is because they are fixed in terms of the features that you are using. So here for this particular example, you can see we have a linear decision boundary here, we have a linear decision boundary here, and then we have a non-linear decision boundary here in this particular case. So as you know that we have this data set, then by observing this data set, you are actually designing your features yourself. As you can see, you have handcrafted features here written. So by handcrafted features means you are observing the data first, and then you are deciding, okay, we will use linear features in this particular problem, and same for this. And why you have decided that? Because you have seen that the data is following a linear pattern. That's why you are thinking, okay, if the data is following a linear pattern, it's better to use linear combination of the feature vectors or linear separable feature vectors. So based on that, you are actually handcrafting your features. For this particular relationship, you are saying, data is nonlinear. You are observing data is nonlinear. So then you will realize that, okay, we have to use some nonlinear features here. Like for example, if you have x as a feature vector, then by observing this data, you will say, okay, let us introduce x square also. And why? And the reason for that is because you observe the data and then you realize, okay, these are the features that I have to use. So that is the major drawback of this particular problem. And the drawback is you are observing the data first and then you are handcrafting the features yourself. And this is one of the major drawbacks of linear regression and classification. And based on that, because of this reason, we are moving to neural networks. And same goes with the classification model over here. As you can see, we have a linear boundary over this side. This is not linear, this is non-linear boundary. And this is also non-linear. So based on the data set, how they are actually scattered on the plane, you are deciding whether this line should be linear or non-linear like this. And depending upon the data set, again, here also you have to come up with the handcrafted features, whether it has to be x or a linear combination of x, or whether it has to be x or multiples of x, like x square, x cube, or x to the power 4, or x square plus x, something like that, depending upon whether your data is linearly separable or non-linearly separable like this. So this is the drawback of fixed models that we have discussed, that is the regression as well as the classification. So in order to overcome these drawbacks, we are coming to neural networks now. So from this point onwards, we will start discussing about neural networks and details of it. And you can see here, I'm just showing you a high level picture, but we will go into the details of this in our next lecture. But here it's just a starting of, just to give you a flavor of what that is, what neural network is. So what it is taking is inputs, and then you are actually feeding that inputs into the neural network, and you are deciding whether it's a cat or dog. Please note, you are actually feeding the input here, but you are not feeding the features, as in case of your linear regression and classification. So here you are feeding the inputs. And how this is doing, a work of a classifier is because it is automatically extracting the features from this image. So these automatic feature extraction will be encapsulated in these layers. So you don't have to come up with your own novel features, but neural network itself will do that. So that is the biggest advantage of neural networks, and because of this reason, we have moved from regression classification to neural network to do more complex tasks like detecting cats and dogs and other high level complex jobs. So this is just a GIF of how you are feeding this image. So what you are doing, you are actually taking this image, making it as a one-dimensional vector. So if this image is 28 cross 28, so you are making it as a one-dimensional vector of 784 cross 1. And then you are feeding it to the neural network. So this is just showing you that. So we will discuss all this, but just to tell you that how it is going on. So this is your feeding of the image into the neural network. Okay, and this is again a high level overview. There is no point in discussing it here, but just wanted to tell you, like in case of linear regression and classification, we had some loss function, and then we were back propagating it through gradient descent or stochastic gradient descent. Similarly here also in the neural networks we have back propagation. We will discuss all that in very much in detail, but just to tell you like what is going on here. So here also you will see that in backpropagation you will be calculating the difference between the output layer, which is actually outputting some values, and then you are actually subtracting it from the actual output, which is here. So you are subtracting y from y hat. This will give you y hat. So you are subtracting y from y hat, and then you are backpropagating this error. So this is also same as in case of linear regression and classification. And this is the backpropagation training. As we were discussing in our linear regression classification also, you have to train that particular classifier or a regressor continuously. In the same way you have to do it here. So this is a training process which is going on. So this is also similar to the linear regression and classification thing. Okay, so now the basic introduction to this is finished. In the next lecture, what we will do is we will go into the details of the simple neural network which is here, and we will understand each and every details of this and see how we will do forward propagation, how we will be doing backward propagation, what is the motivation, what is the reason why we have come up with this particular type of architecture, why not others. So after discussing all that details, then we will move to deep learning neural network, which is nothing but you are replicating these layers multiple times, these hidden layers. So if you replicate them multiple times, it becomes a deep learning neural network. So it's nothing but a more number of layers as compared to the simple neural network where we have only 1 or 2 hidden layers. But in the deep learning literature, we will have more than 2 layers, like 3, 4, 5, 10. So it depends on the application. So we will discuss all this in our coming lectures. And this is just to show you a brief overview of a neural network, what it is doing. Here you can see you are inputting a dog image, and then you can see on the first layer how these edges are detected in this particular layer. And as you move to the next higher layer, the features become more complex. You can see here. You can see here also. But once you go to the top layer, you are able to classify the image as a whole. The whole images are coming here. So as you can see, if you are increasing more layers in the neural network, the complexity of the features are also becoming more complex. Here it was only edges. Here it is becoming parts of that animal, and here it is becoming a complete animal. So now you can see that these features earlier you were designing yourself, these features, using linear regression and classification. But now in case of neural networks, you don't have to worry about it. This particular layer will take into this particular layer will do that job, and similarly this layer and this layer. And so these things we will discuss later. But the thing is, this particular feature is basically a linear combination of the features that it is observing here in the lower layers. That's why it is becoming more complex. And these are simpler feature vectors. Okay, so this finishes off with the task of our introduction to deep learning, our introduction to machine learning. And so my for this particular session I have finished. So if you have any questions regarding these slides, please let me know. I can discuss that with you people. Do you guys have any questions regarding the lecture that I have done? If you have, then please let me know. Otherwise, we will finish this class. Okay, fine. So if there are no questions, then, yeah.
Can you please share the recorded lectures
Yeah.
of these lectures?
Yeah. That one I will share on Classroom, Google Classroom, so you can download from there. Okay. And
Okay,
so once I'll process these videos, then I will upload it onto the. I will pass it on to the Google Classroom. It's basically a link to the YouTube. You can go there and watch. Okay. So it will be there.
Okay, thank you.
So what will be the strategy for evaluation of projects? So the thing is, The strategy I have discussed very in details in my, in my, if you go to my this, just a second here. So the project details, if you go to this PDF, I have listed down the strategies. So you can see there. So I have listed out several points to evaluate your projects. So based on that, your gradings will be done. So you can see that. And it will be better if you people can submit this proposal report as soon as possible, so that the chances for you people to get a specific list of, the project of your choice will be, high. But if you submit late, then it might be the case that somebody has taken that list, that that particular project, and it will be difficult for me to allot to you then. So as soon as you can do that, it will be good for you. So
can we have a team size of less than 4?
Right now you people are how many? I think 38 people are registered for this course. So as far as it will be difficult, to get it less than 4, because it will be difficult to handle. But if you want, then you can do that. But my request for you people will be that if it is good, that if you keep 4 people in your group. But if it's not possible, and if something is not working out, then you can keep 3 people. There is no problem. But I will prefer a group having 4 people there. Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, fine. Then I'll close this class, and once I edit this video, then I will upload it. You can watch it from there. Okay. Okay then. Thanks for watching my lecture. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.